I promise that you'll never find a flop like me. This is Flop Culture. Welcome to Flop Culture, a podcast where we mainly talk about flops, but we also talk about bops, hot goss, you name it. It's all here. I'm your host, Fionnuala J. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode with Jen Gannon, talking all things American Life by Madonna. If you haven't listened to it, go back and do that now. Go on, hit pause. Come back here with a cup of tea. We'll get into it. We've another album as our flop for this week, but before all of that, let's get into some news and some reviews. I really wanted to keep this strictly to reviews because kind of nothing was really happening majorly in a way, and I saw a movie and there was a couple of big albums out and I wanted to talk about all of them. And then it was like Hollywood imploded and everyone was talking about salad and shagging and throwing themselves in front of cars. And of course, it's my duty to report on that then, is it not? And you're scratching your head saying, what do any of those words have in common with each other? Jason Sudeikis, Olivia Wilde, a nanny, and to a degree Harry Styles. So obviously I've spoken about their kind of tumultuous relationship on the podcast in the past. Olivia Wilde is currently dating Harry Styles. She was previously engaged to Jason Sudeikis and they have 2 children together. And this week, a former nanny of theirs gave a really explosive interview with the Daily Mail talking about kind of the fallout of pretty much their entire relationship. And there were a couple of key details that basically people clung on to. They've since come out and made a statement, which I will talk about in a sec. But in terms of the claims they made, the nanny said that Wilde left Sudeikis for Harry shortly after filming began on the movie that she's directing that Harry is in, Don't Worry Darling, which I also talked about in the podcast previous, and I still haven't seen, which is really bad, isn't it? That's not good. Adam's like, what am I doing here? I'm a fraud. Anyway, the nanny told Daily Mail that Olivia put the moves on Harry Styles. That's an interesting expression to use. And then when... put the moves on, okay. And then when Jason Sudeikis found out, he banned his music being played around the house. Fair enough, okay. Then the nanny said that tension started escalating around a salad that Olivia had been making for Harry Styles in their family kitchen. Not their family kitchen, using her special dressing, in inverted commas. I just spat everywhere. In her special... not in her special dressing, oh my God, in her family kitchen using her special dressing. Special dressing is in inverted commas, which prompted Jason, whom the nanny said at this point had been drinking, crying heavily to cope with the dissolution of this relationship. He tried to stop Olivia delivering the salad with this delicious special dressing by throwing himself under her car, which isn't funny. It's not funny, but then at the same time, it's like, I saw a good tweet that was like, how can you expect me not to be engaged in pop culture or interested in pop culture when you have a story that involves that paragraph? There's a man throwing himself in front of a car because this salad has such a hold over Harry Styles that he's like, you need to come over and I need to shag you right now. Right now. Okay. Since then, the nanny since she says she was fired, right, by Jason because he was drunk and enraged after he found out that the nanny had been texting Olivia Wilde. That kind of brings us up to speed. Since then, they've released a joint statement, Olivia Wilde and Jason Sudeikis. And they said, as parents, it is incredibly upsetting to learn that a former nanny of our 2 children would choose to make such false and scurrilous accusations about us publicly. Her now 18-month-long campaign of harassing us, as well as loved ones, close friends and colleagues, has reached its unfortunate apex. We will continue to focus on raising and protecting our children with the sincere hope that she will now choose to leave our family alone. So that was that. But we now also know what the dressing was, apparently, because Olivia Wilde seemingly, which to be honest, I think is the best response to this, because it's a story that's so mad and people are going to cling to. People are going to forget about it, I'd say. Think about how quickly we forgot about how the Don't Worry Darling stuff when the movie came out, right? It lives on forever in a way, but the news cycle is so rapid, right? So I think this was the right thing to do. Be tongue-in-cheek about it. Be kind of funny about it, right? Because in a way, this story also... Because if you listen to the Don't Worry Darling episode, I talked about the whispers around Hollywood and around people in pop culture circles and familiar with blind item culture that Jason Sudeikis... allegedly maybe isn't a great person. And I'm going to be honest, as much as this is a mad situation, this kind of makes him look bad for the first time in this entire scenario. Not that I ever think Olivia really looks bad. She got together with someone else. Who knows about the timelines? I don't really care. Whatever. Famous people are strange. Anyway, this is the first instance where it's been like, maybe Jason isn't as, as nice as we thought. The dressing then, apparently, she went on Instagram stories earlier this week and shared a photo from a page in Nora Ephron's 1983 Roman Aicliffe, Heartburn. And this is based on the author's divorce from Carl Bernstein, who's a Washington Post reporter. And in it, the main character shares this recipe for a salad dressing that she makes for her husband. So if you're interested, I was going to do it ASMR. Maybe I won't. Maybe my own voice is ASMR in itself. So if you're knocking around, you need something for lunch, this will make all the men weak at their knees for you. Mix 2 tablespoons grey Poupon mustard with 2 tablespoons good red wine vinegar. Then whisk constantly with a fork. Slowly add 6 tablespoons of olive oil until the vinaigrette is thick and creamy. This makes a very strong vinaigrette that's perfect for salad greens like arugula and watercress and endive. Endive? Endive. I think that's it. There you go. There's your salad dressing. Enjoy that. Enjoy having all the men come to your yard. Is this the equivalent of Khalees's milkshake? Olivia's special dressing? Is it just a euphemism then as well? Is it just... I'm not going to be crude. I'm not going to say it, but... much to think about. Anyway, I had to get to that from the top. There's nothing else in Celebland I really want to talk about other than the things that I've watched and listened to this week. And one of those things, I haven't seen Don't Worry Darling, but I have seen Smile, which is a supernatural horror film that I think people should see in the lead up to Halloween. It's very good. It's very, very good. Directed by Parker Finn. It's his directorial debut and it's based on a short film that he did previously called Laura Hasn't Slept. And I didn't realise this watching, but the lead actor is Kevin Bacon's daughter and her name is Saucy Bacon. I think that's how you pronounce it, which Adam's laughing and I'm glad he gets it. I'm not the only one that hears that, right? Saucy Bacon? Saucy Bacon? Saucy and Bacon? Did they do that on purpose? Anyway, he's with Keira Sedgwick, isn't he? Anyway, none of this is relevant. She's incredible in this. She's really, really good. She plays a therapist who... She witnesses this really strange suicide of a patient and then starts going through these really disturbing experiences. There's a couple of other people in it. Cal Penn, Rob Morgan, Caitlin Stassi, Kyle Gallagher, Jessie T. Usher. Very good. The jump scares are very good. It's just very satisfying because when I saw the marketing for this, I was like, this isn't going to be good. Even though I thought the marketing was good, but when people put a lot of money into marketing and then the film is actually kind of a flop, and it's not a flop, it's done really well at the box office. It's very, very good. The ending could have been a little bit more satisfying for me if I was to really pull apart things, and the only other thing I would say is because this is a movie that references suicide a lot, I found it surprising that in the dialogue and the writing that they constantly refer to it as committing suicide, which isn't a thing anymore, and that's just generally not how we talk about it or should talk about it. It's died by suicide. But again, very, very small thing. If you're into horror, go see it. Definitely more psychological, more than supernatural, I would say. Keeps you on your toes. Very, very good. I can't wait to see what Saucy Bacon does next. I can't believe that's her name, though. I know I can say that because my name's Fionnuala. I can't talk. In terms of other things I've been really enjoying this week, I have to talk about the Tove Lo record, Dirt Femme. Very good. 100% one of my albums of the year. I think the production is really sharp. I think the narrative and the themes, she kind of hits every point for me. I love the look into, that kind of married life, domesticity, femininity, and how they balance off each other. True Romance is probably my favourite on the record. I think No One Dies From Love is probably my favourite song of the year. It was such a strong single. So excluding that, I would say True Romance, Suburbia is very good. Really like Grapefruit. And then Pineapple Slice with S.G. Lewis. He is incredible. Every pop artist needs to be working with him because... Well, maybe don't, because then he might turn into a bit of a Jack Antonoff and we don't need that. But if you are a pop artist who's like, I need to be doing something kind of innovative and being on the pulse and making music that is incredibly good... you would be amiss to not have him as part of your arsenal. I was actually talking about Ellie Goulding with a friend recently, and there's rumours that apparently she's worked with him on her new album that I think she's announced. I think it's called Higher Than Heaven. My friend is going to be very annoyed at me if I've gotten that wrong. If the rumours are true, I think that's a good decision for her, because it'll probably nudge her career along in a way that's kind of stalled over the last little while. But anyway, we're not talking about Ellie Goulding. We're talking about Tove Lo. What an album. So good. If you haven't listened to it, I cannot recommend enough. I will say Grapefruit Slice, trigger warning, is about dealing with eating disorders. It's very powerful. The lyricism is very good, and the video to match. Loved it. Cannot wait to see her live. I'm trying to get tickets for her in the Roundhouse in London. So if anyone has tickets, I would like to buy them off you, please. And then elsewhere, the 1975 released their new album, Being Funny in a Foreign Language, and Quelle Surprise. I loved it. Well, actually, kind of surprised, because I absolutely hated the last. I didn't hate the last album, but it certainly was not my fave. Notes on a Conditional Form was the last one. Yeah, too long, sprawling, too many ideas, too experimental, just a mess. Too much of them trying to pander to critics, I think. Whereas the difference with this one, Being Funny in a Foreign Language, it's for the fans, and that's why I think it's under. If you are coming into this blind and you don't like it, that's why, because you're not a fan. This one's for us. I'm going to take this one. It's nice to hear Matty Healy in a position as a lyricist and a musician where he's predominantly kind of happy and in love, because that was the other thing with the last two albums. As good as they are, they're very dark. He's going through a lot, talking about dealing with addiction and everything else, and it makes for incredible art. But it's a nice change of pace to have this kind of sunny disposition from the instrumentation and the production, the lyricism, everything like that. There are very sad moments. When We Are Together is incredibly sad. I can't really listen to it that often. And I've just loved this promo cycle. I love that he's leaning into being this egomaniac, weirdo, pick-me boy. And is it 10% to him, 80% an act? I don't know. I'm not willing to argue on the percentages, but I've just enjoyed it so much. And I find he's had some just very, very funny moments, which I've enjoyed. If you haven't watched his Chicken's Chap Date, also, that's hysterical. It's so funny. It's very, very good. That's as much down to Amelia as it is to the host, as it is to him. Favourite tracks on that, I love Oh Caroline. And I actually love I'm in Love With You more than I did when it was released as a single. It's very, when they lean into the Bon Iver and the, what's the other band called? LCD Sound System stuff. It works. It works for me. The payoff is less good in other areas, but overall, I think it's very good. Nice and concise. Cannot wait to see them in the 3 Arena. Saw them in the 3 Arena at the last tour, which would have been for a brief inquiry into online relationships. And my God, love it if we made it. Just slaps so hard live. I'm obsessed with him. I'm obsessed with them. And I cannot wait. We've a very tepid 1975 connection to this flop, kind of, if you're to believe the rumours about the 1975 song She's American and about who it's about. It's probably about Halsey, but it might also be about Taylor Swift, who is very related to this week's flop. On flop culture this week, my guest's pick is going to make complete sense to 50% of you, and the other 50%, you'll probably be scratching your head. You could argue that no album from this artist is flop-worthy given the huge numbers she's done since the beginning of her career. However, one album stands out in her discography due to its odd string of singles, her own personal life, and a pesky pandemic to contend with. Jonathan Kelly, aka Jay's Takes, pop culture critic online, he joins me now to talk about Taylor Swift's album Lover. Enjoy. Jonathan Kelly, aka Jay's Takes, on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you so much for joining me on Flop Culture.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you for picking me. I've been trying to explain to my granny for so long, like, what's going on? I'm like, she's like, I do TikTok. And she's like, what? I'm like, I go to movie premieres. She's like, what? Then I'm like, I'm going to be on a podcast with someone from the 6 o'clock show. And she's like, oh my God, you're famous. You've met it. Like, this is me.
Oh my God. The grannies and the mums love 6 o'clock show.
100%.
If I had €1 for every time it was like, my mum loves you. Like, I'd probably have a tenner, at least. Maybe a little bit more. Who knows?
So now I can tell my granny I've met it. So thank you for that.
There you go. I'm so delighted to facilitate this. Before we get into what you've picked, because I suppose this story kind of ties into what you picked. Do we want to get into maybe, this is the first time we've met in person, but we do know each other.
We have a history.
Maybe we're kind of, did we have a beef maybe even?
I think we had a beef.
I can't believe this. So, okay, for anyone who's unfamiliar, your head, are you okay? There's a piano behind, Jonathan said, the poor thing. For anyone who's unfamiliar, I used to work for a publication called The Daily Age, which is like all like pop culture, kind of Irish, funny things as part of the journal. And during my time there, I was working there around the time that Taylor Swift was releasing her album. It was Reputation, wasn't it?
Right,
it was Reputation. Right. So we were covering that kind of pretty extensively, obviously, because we did a lot of celebrity culture and everything like that. And if people are familiar with Taylor Swift, she does these secret sessions with fans in which they get to listen to the album, like hang out with her, have a laugh, all a buzz, right? So I'm like going through Twitter, trying to write my stories, whatever, and I see that there are these two Irish people who've been invited to one of the secret sessions for Reputation. And I'm like, oh my God, class, let me get on to these guys. They'll definitely want to do an interview with me. Now, at this point, dear listener, you will realise that I had no understanding of the Swift fandom and how much they protect Mother Bird Taylor and how they don't reveal their sources, everything like that. The secret sessions are secret for a reason, right? So I DM Jonathan at the time, not knowing, and I'm like, hey Jonathan, how are you? I'd love to talk to you about going to the secret sessions, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
God,
and you're like, and nobody replies, right? Fair, okay, because I'm looking for dirt, obviously. Nobody replies, and then I see, I'm pretty sure, were you subtweeting me? You were subtweeting me a little bit, I think.
So the backstory to that is, so met Taylor Swift, like so good, best day of my life. And though she had one request, she was like, do not talk to any media.
Of course,
because
yeah.
Like, she was like, cause like we were young and like, you know, like obviously you were going to just be like, hey, how was it? But if it was like somebody else, I won't name anything, but they might be like trying to get information, trying to get like stuff. So the one thing she said was, do not talk to anybody.
Yeah.
So we met that promise and we were sticking to it. Mm-hmm. And then, so like we actually got like a lot of emails, a lot of calls, a lot of like, not emails, sorry, who done again? A lot of DMs, a lot of like from like all sorts of publications. And we were like, ignore. So that was all fine. And then I guess we got an email from, or a DM
my good
from
self,
you.
yeah.
Your good self.
Hassling you.
And then what happened was, it's kind of complicated and hilarious because what happened was you DM'd me, it seemed, and then maybe my friend Vanessa too.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh yeah, fully. I was like a dog with a bone, 100%. Yeah.
And then, so then you write the article anyways, and you're like, oh, two Irish people met them, so cool, whatever. But then my friend doesn't know that you had messaged her, right? And we were all so nervous about Taylor Swift not knowing. And then at the end you said, oh, I reached out, they didn't reply. But she didn't get what that meant. She kind of thought like, she wasn't sure what that meant.
Okay.
And then she was like, so then she was subtweeting you like, oh no, I didn't do that, like blah, 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 blah. And then, so yeah, she was like, I didn't do that, blah, blah. And then that's how the story kind of panned out. And then like, I'd say about like a year later or something like that, someone randomly texts me and they're like, oh, do you watch do you listen to the Bandwagons podcast? And I was like, absolutely. They're like, do you hear the episode? And I was like, why? And they were like, they're talking about you on it.
I think what I did actually after was actually worse than the initial. Okay, as you mentioned, we did an episode of on Taylor Swift for Bandwagons.
Right.
And so we talked about, like, for anyone who's not familiar with Bandwagons, we talked about like why people get on specific bandwagons for things. And obviously Taylor Swift is one of those artists, like, absolutely. And we obviously talk about our own experiences with them. And I have not listened back to that episode since, so if I really roasted you, I'm really sorry.
No.
But I remember talking about this experience and of like reaching out to you and your friend Vanessa and you not getting, and you subtweeting me and me being like, well, why the fuck didn't they get back to me? And I'm a journalist and I'm just, why would you just subtweet me? Blah, blah, blah. So then I start following you on TikTok because your videos are coming up on my For You page. And I'm like, oh, gas, whatever. And you DM me and you're like, oh yeah, blah, blah, after you listened to the Bandwagons episode. And you bring it up and you're like, yeah, because I'm like, you're like, because then you mentioned that I mentioned you in the Bandwagons episode. I'm like, what? And the fear I had, ladies and gentlemen, was colossal.
Did you know at that point that did you connect the dots?
No,
like,
not at all.
Guy,
and it was the minute you said it, I could see the photo of you meeting Taylor. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
I love it. Because it was literally like, it was an honor to be mentioned on that podcast. I didn't care what you said. I was like, I was mentioned on a Bandwagons podcast. I was like, I met it. This is it. So I was like, I was honored. I was actually laughing when I heard it. There was not one part of me that was like, what did she think? Blah, blah, blah. I thought it was hilarious.
Okay, so we're putting the beef to bed.
The beef is to bed.
Okay, I'm thrilled. And I'm thrilled you're here. And as you've probably guessed, we're going to talk about something related to Taylor Swift. What did you pick for Flop Culture?
So I picked Taylor Swift's Lover era. Now, this is kind of a hard one to say because technically it didn't flop. As terms of like numbers go, it was the best-selling album of 2019 in America. To call that a flop is very difficult. However, when you look at like Taylor Swift and what she's built and her past albums, it's very clear that is her worst, it's her least successful, and it is her least significant when you look back on her discography.
Okay. Was that your initial impression when you listened to the album, like as a Swiftie, a self-confessed Swiftie? Or is it kind of retrospectively now you're like, not great? So
the single Me had a huge story behind it. So she started doing these cryptic Instagram posts. And actually, funny enough, when she started doing it, she did it as a joke, and the album wasn't even finished. But people thought this was like, the album's going to be released in 10 days. So she had to like rush it out. So at the beginning, I was like, so anyway, that happened. There was a huge build-up. She had like a countdown. She had a billboard on Times Square. Like, the release of Me was like her most promoted single, right? There was a lot on this. It was just after Reputation. Like, everyone was looking at her.
Yeah, especially when Reputation was such a quiet era in terms of media, everything else. I still remember the Instagram rollout with like the colourful, I think there was like some picture of palm trees and it was like, so had some mad sparkly filter on it or something. It was like, she's coming.
So literally, so everyone was ready. And then I had told all my friends, like, Taylor Swift's coming back. We're all going to listen to the song together. Blah, blah, blah. And then the night of the release, she releases the song with the music video at the same time. So I'm like, okay, song first, then music video. I put my headphones on and I listen to the song. And the song, I'm still, for the whole time, I kind of like, oh, this is good, this is bad. And at the very end, I thought to myself, is this the worst Taylor Swift song I've ever heard in my life? Or is it not that bad?
Okay.
And I could not decide. I really couldn't. So I called my friend and I was like, I think that was maybe the worst Taylor Swift song I've ever heard in my life. And then she was like, and then she was like, I love it. Like, she was actually in New York at the time, and she was like, with all the buzz,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So she's like, I love it.
New York was poisoning her brain to believe that the song was good. Fair, we've all been there. Taylor herself has been there.
So at the beginning, I was like, I wasn't sure. And then maybe about a week went on, and I was like, I cannot get behind this. I think where it goes wrong is when Taylor Swift says, hey kids, spelling is fun. She just crossed the line. Like, there was a line that was crossed there that it went from anyway, fun bubblegum pop, but it was already way past that line. But when she said that, it's like, what are you even trying to achieve here? Do you know, after Look What You Made Me Do, like, I Did Something Bad, Getaway Car, some of the best, like, pop releases she's ever had. Some of them weren't even singles. And then she went to Me. It was too much of a change, and I couldn't get behind it.
What was the thought process though? Because like you and I both, I would say, have a very good understanding of who she is as an artist and fundamentally as a businesswoman. She operates like the two in tandem and does it usually incredibly well. And she still did it incredibly well here because you mentioned the numbers. Like, it sold like so many copies, did so well like across the world. I suppose it just didn't have that lasting impact in comparison to the other albums. And as you said, within the fandom, there was this like moment of crisis where it's like, what the fuck is she doing? It just seems like she's not even kind of maybe speaking to us anymore. It's like she's nearly half marketing towards like children with this really weird lyricism, and it's all a bit too twee and like childlike. What do you think was going on in her head at that time?
So there is kind of a little bit of a backstory to the single releases. Because in my opinion, if Me was the 13th track, it was never a single, and it was a fun little breakup to an album, I think it would have been fine. It would have been fine at and then put it on some kids' movie, it would have been fine. Interestingly, when the song got released, Swifties were like convinced, they convinced themselves that this wasn't the first single. There was actually a single for a kids' Pixar movie that got released, and they just hadn't connected them yet. So Taylor had to reply to a Tumblr post that was like, everyone was like, oh, thank God, it's only for a movie. We've figured it out. And Taylor was like, no, like this is the first single. Like this is the kind of like, so it's kind of, one thing, it's hard to know whether or not she really realized that Me and Lover was a mess.
Okay.
But I think when we go forward, we'll figure out that she does realize that. But also, when you look at Reputation and you look at the single choices, they were also catastrophic. Like, look what she made me do. In my opinion, Swifties say it shouldn't be the first single. I think it should.
I think it should. I don't love it as a song, but it absolutely makes sense for what she was trying to do. I will just say I actually won't have any Endgame slander on this podcast. I'm an Endgame apologist. I hate to say it. I hate to say it. That song fucking slaps. But anyway, I get what you mean, I suppose, in terms of coming off Red and coming off other albums. It's still a bit like,
and also,
what are you doing?
I love Endgame, but why was Ed Sheeran on that song? There was absolutely no need for Ed Sheeran to jump on that song.
Look, I'm all for Ed Sheeran exclusion, right? I think he works so well on that song. Anyway, we're not talking about Reputation. You'll come back and talk about Reputation at some stage. But yeah, all of the singles for Lover were a bit weird. They were a bit, and they were kind of met with this really tepid reception. I suppose from the wider public as well.
Right.
As well as Swifties.
Right. So that's just it. It's when the Swifties can't even defend it, because we will defend anything. We were behind her. Like during 2016, I didn't care what videos.
You guys were in the trenches in 2016.
I was in the trench. I had the entire internet against me, and I was there, and I was fighting that fight. And I think we came out the better end of it 5 years later. But it took 5 years for us to get our redemption.
5 long years, man. 5 long years. Oh my God.
You're wrong. So I think one of the things that went wrong with Me, and what she was wrongly thinking was, I don't know if that's a word, bad single choices. I think she her other single choices were perfect. Look at the 1989 release, perfect. But Lover, the single choice is just like, everyone says, if you haven't heard Cruel Summer, you need to listen to it. It is probably her best pop song. Funny enough, it's actually gone viral on TikTok right now. I don't know if you've seen the trend. So that's the main problem. It could have been the 12th single, but the 12th song on the album, a little fun breakup, but it wasn't. It was the first single, and that was a disaster. I don't know what she was thinking. There's no reason that Cruel Summer shouldn't have been first.
Yeah. What about the other singles then? So we had You Need to Calm Down next, which kind of came with its own firestorm for a variety of reasons.
Right.
What do you think of it? What was your first impression? What do you think of it now? And again, what do you think her thought process was? Because again, like, there were so many factors as to why, it fucked people off. There was a lot of drama, like, in terms of celebrity guests, with the video, everything like that. Then there were just, like, critiques of the song itself, being like, this isn't that, like, you can do pop. Yeah. Why are you doing this?
So, funny enough, she actually worked with a guy called Joe Little for this album. Yeah. And Joe Little is Lord's producer.
Yeah.
So, like, that's one thing. I'm like, they could have made, like, the best pop music ever, the two of them together. But I think what happened was she got Joe Little on board. Joe Little is a very serious, like, we listened to Lord's album, he's very serious. And then she asked him to do pop, like bubblegum pop. And I think that's one thing that went wrong. I don't know. I'm no expert on music, but that's just as a Swiftie what I can gather. I think you need to, like, I'm a You Need to Calm Down apologist. Like, I really did like that song. I think it could have been a lot better. I think it could have been a bit longer. I think it's very short. But like at the end, it's like it just kind of stops when it gets good. The music video, I kind of love it all. Like, I'm a Swiftie, I'm a gay Swiftie. Like, I'm gonna, like, this is like kind of my dream, like Taylor Swift. I could go into a lot of reasons as to why I think that the backlash to that was absolutely ridiculous. But I understand, I guess, with people not knowing much about her.
Well, let's talk about it, just for anyone who's not familiar. So, like, the whole thing was that it's kind of like her attempting a gay anthem in a way, like LGBTQ plus. There's a lot of representation throughout the video. It's like all the Queer Eye guys, lots of other people that are escaping my memory
there.
now. RuPaul, like, look, like
Race,
if you can think of them, they're there, right?
Right.
And there's references to like shade. One of the lyrics is "Shade never made anybody less gay."
What a line.
Like, which in hindsight, good fucking line, right? You know what I mean? Like, and then there's the whole thing of like, she had a message with like GLAAD being representing the charity in the States as opposed to just like the word GLAAD.
Right.
Was this people taking her to like is it people taking her at to face value, or like, was it just where the internet, I suppose, was, and all of us being like very chronically online and kind of, I'm trying to phrase this properly, you know, where it's like people get mad because people don't do enough for representation and don't speak out, and it's something that she's been criticised for before.
Absolutely,
and then she goes and does it with something like this, a little bit clunkily, but I mean, I think the intention was there, you know what I mean? You have all these people featured in the video who are legitimate like gay icons. She's urging people to go donate to this charity that supports LGBTQ plus communities.
Right.
Like, is it just people being like holding her to this standard that she would never meet? Is it people just like the accusing of like queer baiting and stuff? Like, that's not really. I just don't think that's what it was. I didn't think it then. I don't think it now. I just think it was like, this was a fun thing she wanted to do. She felt more comfortable speaking out. I would have loved if she'd spoken out a little bit sooner, but I'm kind of like, better late than never. It was fun. It didn't really hurt anyone. What do you think?
I think that well, one of the things is that she really went all there. Like, when she wasn't like, I'm gonna release a video and then I'm gonna leave. Like, she released a petition for I don't know the inner workings of politics in America, but and we'll definitely get into that. But basically, it's for the passing of the Equality Act, which is basically, she explains as everyone should get equal rights under the law. And that got I think it got 900,000 signatures.
Yeah.
And in America, if a petition gets 100,000 signatures, the White House has to respond. They have to give a written response saying whether we agree, disagree, blah, blah, blah. So when she did that, that got 9 times more. I don't know the exact number. About 9 times more than the White House has to respond. That is huge. And then the White House actually had to respond. So, and then outside the VMAs, she said it. They hadn't responded. So she said, and she had a little quote where she's like, come on, guys, you need to respond. The White House needs to respond to this. And she taps her watch. And then the next day they respond and they say, no, we don't want to pass it. So
good old US government, eh?
Literally so Trump. And so anyways, she goes on and she's like, so I think that it wasn't like she released a video, she's like, oh, buy my album, buy. She really went all there, and that's where I don't really get the connection. I think if it was a really good song, I think people would be more on board. But I think the fact that people don't like the song, and then so I think it doesn't help the situation. People are really against it. I've heard all sides, but I'm an apologist. Do you know? I
didn't really like it upon initial release. I like it more now.
Right.
It's probably still not my fave, but I can appreciate it's her having a moment. I love exasperated Taylor, where she's just the eye roll, and I love when you can hear that in the music. To be honest, I also do. Yeah, I do love this track just because it brought her and Katy Perry back together against all odds. Talk to us about that, because she features in the music video.
So I'll give a really, really, really quick recap of
because when I was Googling this for this episode, Time magazine have done a very comprehensive article for it. But fuck me, it's even longer than I remember, because I think even when we covered this for Bandwagons, I was like, oh my God, it was a long, arduous road to reconciliation.
Years. So I'm going to go off my memory, so I'm going to miss a lot. Basically, okay, so long story short, both of them dated John Mayer. Taylor dated John Mayer, and then right after Kitty dated John Mayer. They claim that it has nothing to do with the feud. Okay.
So you think it? Oh, so you think it does? Because people always bring it back to the dancers.
Dancers, come on, maybe. But I think that's a good thing to say. They claim it hasn't. They were very clear that they do not want this to be about a guy. I respect that. So I'm just going to tell
I respect that, but also. We're side-eyeing just a little bit.
I think it's just important to drop that happened.
Yeah.
So then Taylor goes on Rolling Stones, and she basically she tells a story about Bad Blood. The song hasn't been released yet, but she's kind of explaining the song. And she says that it's about another female artist, one of her peers, that this is all gone off memory. So,
No, you're right. Yeah.
One of her peers that basically this person would come up to her at a word show and say something, and Taylor wouldn't know if that was the meanest thing she's ever heard or the nicest thing that's ever been said to her. So basically, she never knew where she stood. Funny enough, so basically, and there's actually a picture of them, like, there's a picture of them or Katie going up to Taylor, and Taylor kind of walks away. It's a bit awkward. So you can see pictures, no video. And then, funny enough, in Shake It Off, Taylor says, my ex-man brought his new girlfriend. She's like, oh my God. And there's a picture of them at the Grammys, and Katie's with John Mayer, and Katie walks up to Taylor, and they shake hands, and then Katie walks back to John Mayer, or whatever happened exactly. Off memory. So, like, I think that line is about Katy Perry. People haven't really connected that dot too much.
Okay.
But my ex-man brought his new girlfriend. She's like, oh my God. But I'm just going to shake. Also, what a good line.
I love this big brain thinking, oh my God, you're 100% right.
So then Taylor says that, and then she also says, this person stole my dancers, right?
This was on a particular tour she was on. This would have been just off the back of the Red tour.
So Taylor said that halfway through the Red tour, her dancers give her 2 weeks notice and say, another artist told us we want you, right? That artist turned out to be Katy Perry. So Taylor obviously, if you're on a tour and 2 weeks in, half your dancers go, you're going to be shook. Who to blame there is hard to know.
The one thing I will say there is that's the shitty fucking dancers, right? Like,
right.
2 weeks notice, not really long enough, right? I would argue that, I think their argument at the time was that they weren't doing a lot of dancing on the Red tour, which makes sense, I would say. Right. And I can understand them going to a tour where they were going to be dancing more, i.e. Katy Perry. But it's just...
I bet they regret it now, the way Katie's career is gone.
Let's not spoil. Oh my God. Can someone pick that album, please? I'd like to talk about it. I would really like to talk about it. So, and then it kind of... We could be here all day talking about the back and forth, but, obviously then it was like...
Then, long story short, Katy Perry tweeted that big friend was her, and the feud went on for years and years and years. It was crazy. They both did a whole marketing campaign on it. Taylor did Bad Blood. Yeah. She can say it wasn't about that. Everyone knew it was. And Katie did The Witness. And she did Swish Swish. And she did that. And both of them it got nasty. I could imagine if you were Katy Perry, the biggest pop girl, and then Taylor Swift comes with the most, the biggest pop album ever, and then releases Bad Blood, goes number one. I could imagine you'd be raging.
Yeah, fully. Yeah.
I actually don't know how they ever reconciled, to be honest.
And it was because it seemed like Katie was fully like, okay, whatever, I don't care. And then there was some point during The Witness, because I think she was asked about Swish Swish, and she said fully that it was about this, and then later on, backtracked about it and was very much like, I want to extend the olive branch, I'm done, I'm really, really done. There was stuff, but then she was collaborating with Calvin Harris, so people were like, how can you say that if you're collaborating with her ex-boyfriend? It was messy. Taylor stopped saying stuff for a while and kind of stopped at her, and Katy Perry was more the one keeping it going. And then obviously Taylor was going into the lead up for this album, obviously had an idea that maybe she wanted to, factor this in, or was genuinely just ready to be like, can we just fucking let this go? This is so boring. So she sent her this plate of cookies, and Katie put it up and was like, peace restored to the land or something like that. Funny
enough, what happened there was Katie sent an olive branch to Taylor on her tour saying good luck. That ended the friendship. But the cookies, they were actually together in the house, and they baked cookies together, and Katie put it up. And then they didn't picture together. So, and actually what I kind of love about it is that basically they both say now that we're not best friends. They got reconciled because they seen each other at a few parties, and eventually Katie kind of went up to Taylor, from what I can understand, and was like, can we just move past this? We're both in this, whatever. Let's not be awkward when we see each other. That's kind of where they are. They are not best friends, and I love how they don't try pretend to be. Yeah. They don't put up pictures together. They just say, this is over, but we're not going to be best friends. We're not going to ever trust each other.
Because they never were either. You know what I mean? Never. It's this weird, pressure on female artists, the usual. But she had said, when she was speaking to BBC Radio around the time of the music video debuting, she said she'd sent kind of the treatment of the video to Katie and was like, I would love for us to be a symbol of redemption and forgiveness. And I think that's how it turned out in their burger costume and everything else. What was Taylor dressed in? A drink or chips?
She was chips. And then Katie was the burger.
That makes sense.
And then they hugged.
So far, so good.
And that was another criticism of, you need to calm down. People were like, why are you making... people were like, why are you making like a song about, you know, gay rights, LGBTQ rights, about you and Katie's friendship, which I get that a little bit.
I do get it, but then I'm like, is that just her again being kind of big brain strategic, where it's like, how am I going to get the most eyes and ears on this? Oh yeah, I need to bring it, like, I've been publicly scrapping with someone. People are just thirsty for us to make up.
Yeah.
How, of course, like, that's going to get, like, that's the clickbait. You know what I mean? She's kind of queen of clickbait in that sense, like.
And if you want to, just an inkling of how Katie's career is going, that picture of them together was Katie's most liked picture on Instagram. I'm pretty sure ever.
No, Jonathan, don't tell me that.
Maybe Katie has done better, but that is, as of like the last time I checked, that was Katy Perry's most liked picture on Instagram ever.
How do you go from teenage dream to a fucking most liked picture? Oh my God. Anyway, that was You Need to Calm Down. What was the third single? Lover.
Right.
I don't. I'm
a Lover stan, I will say.
Okay, you go first and then I'll get into it. But
I think it's very Ed Sheeran bland, but I mean, like, can I go where? I just love it.
It's very sweet.
Yeah.
It's nice to hear her in this mindset of love and like comfort.
Right.
I hated when they brought Shawn Mendes into it, I will say. I cannot,
why?
that fucking single cut, like, my God. It doesn't... I feel like this would have gone down really well at Loverfest, which we'll get into as well. Like, I feel like it's made to be a live track.
Right.
But it doesn't kind of... like, it just... I don't know. I think she has better ballads.
Right. And you know what? Another interesting thing, part of Lover and the flop, reason I think it's a flop, is because I think that Taylor Swift went from Reputation, which was like, it was for us sad people. It was for us, like, just not, you know.
Yeah.
And it was like really, it was a dark album. It was sad. It was very, very, very serious. There was like elements to it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then she went to like, okay, now I'm in love. In the last few years, I fell in love. So you all jump on board. I'm not in love. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not.
Taylor, I'm still depressed.
I'm still single. Like, can we not do this? So, literally. So, I think that's another way she went wrong. There was such a switch from Reputation to Lover, even Lover the song. Like, it was such a switch.
A big gear change. A big gear change. Right. Let's go through the full track list. We have I Forgot That You Existed, which people, maybe about Calvin, maybe about Kanye, kind of little fun. A great opener, I think. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think it's a fun little opener.
Yeah.
I wouldn't ever listen to it, but it's a fun little opener.
I haven't listened to it once since, but yeah, great little opener. Cruel Summer, as you've already mentioned. Annie Clark features on this, aka St. Vincent. She does did some of the writing for it, I think, with herself and Jack Antonoff was on production duties. This is, as you said, like, if you haven't listened to this, if you're a pop fan, if you're a poptimist, and you don't really engage with Taylor, I'd find it. I'm sure you've come across this. If you haven't, though, you need to put it on all your playlists.
Taylor
it's so
Swift
good.
is famous for her bridges. Yeah. Like, that's her big thing. And this bridge is like the peak of the song, the best part of the song. And it's surrounded by an amazing production. Yeah. So it's just so good. And yeah.
Then we have Lover, which we talked about. The Man, obviously, was the final single for the rollout.
Final single.
Yeah.
Released like a year and a half after the album came out. Complete disaster. Yeah. On that end. But funny enough, it's now gone viral on TikTok and it's now becoming a hit. Yeah. Interestingly. I think at the time, if The Man was like quicker in the release schedule, maybe it would have been big. It's very like, what would you say, like bland feminism. Like, it's very like top tier, kind of like, if I was a man, I'd be the man. Yeah. But it's also an anthem. So it's kind of hard to know. It's a good song. It's a good song. It just kind of doesn't really get in there, but it's like, yeah, I like it.
But like, does it need to? It goes back to that thing of like, do we need, of course I want my pop stars to be like vocal and speak out on things that matter to me and whatever. And she does in ways that matter. She doesn't always need to do it in the artistry, because that's not what I look to her for. And this was a turning point for her, because this obviously came with the Miss Americana doc and her wanting to be more vocal and acknowledging that she kind of hadn't been in the past. But like, you can't expect every pop star to be everything. I don't know, I just think it's a bit, she's never ever claimed to be that kind of pop star or that kind of artist. Like, because then it gets into that thing of like, oh yeah, it is a pop song, but it's also like this really weighty message, and they don't always really like transfer. This worked really well because it was a bit so like, true. Because it was surface level, and it was like, she's not gonna close the fucking gender wage gap, but she's like, it's all, do you know what I mean? Like, she's not speaking to those people, like, even with her audience, I think. Anyway, love the video as well. It's her in drag. You mentioned about like this had come in a different ordering, and I thought of a question as you said that. So say she's going to release Lover again. Lover's never happened. It's the movie yesterday, whatever. It's that plot. And she's like, I'm releasing Lover. And she's like, Jonathan, I have these 4 singles or 5, whatever. 4. I have these 4 singles and you only have them. You can't choose, unfortunately, from the rest of the track list because she hasn't come to her senses that much.
Okay.
Is there an order of the singles that you think would have salvaged Lover in a parallel universe?
That is quite the question.
It is.
And the reason it's quite the question is I don't think I would have picked one of those singles. I think that's what makes that question difficult.
Yeah.
But I think, okay, so I would say off the top of my head right now, me last for a movie. The movie comes out, she connects it to that. She could put the 4th single of Lover. Probably I would either go Lover or You Need to Calm Down first. No, actually, not even calm down. Okay, so I would go Lover, The Man, You Need to Calm Down, Me. That would be right now. If I'm sticking to it, I'm locking it in. But I could change that in 2 minutes.
Okay.
So.
And if you were to pick, I suppose, from the actual track list, what would you have gone with? You'd have gone with Cruel Summer as the first single.
Cruel Summer as the first single.
Okay.
After that, I don't think it really matters because Cruel Summer being number 1, she could have followed up with anything. It would have been good. I think
it kind of would have been her as it was.
Right.
Because you know the way Harry didn't really do anything until...
Yeah.
Like that bankrolled him right up to the album's release.
And that was one of the problems with Lover is that Me got released and she didn't release the album for 5 months. People don't do that anymore. That's like an old school album release cycle. Like right now it's because of streaming. It's like you release the album. Look what Harry did. What, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later? It was something really close. Now, obviously this is newer. This is 2019, but she tried to do an old school release, which is like tabloids, release a single, tabloids, Graham Norton, blah, blah, blah. Another single, tabloids, and then release the album. That does not work anymore. People don't do it. The longest someone's going to wait now is like 2 months. I see like Charlie Puth is saying my album's going to release in October. I'm like, Charlie Puth, what are you doing? Like,
Charles, what are you doing, my love? He's
like,
stressing me
TikTok
out.
is not going to save you. Like,
I know, honestly. Yeah, so do you think she was just too out of the loop at that point? Because like, I remember, it was 2016 she released Reputation, right? Or it was around that. 2016.
No, so sorry. 2016 was the drama, 2017 was Reputation.
2017. I remember buying that album, and it was probably one of, maybe not the last one, but it was one of the last albums I bought on iTunes to listen to it.
Right.
Because it wasn't, she was still like withhold, or I might have been, because she was still withholding a lot. Well, streaming hadn't really hit its peak then. She obviously had the thing of like withholding stuff from streaming.
Right.
And then the other issue with the Katy Perry thing was that when she was releasing something, Taylor timed that with her
Witness.
with releasing all of her music back on streaming services.
The day Katy Perry released Witness, Taylor Swift the day before said, "Hi, I'm releasing my entire discography on Spotify tomorrow." Iconic. Undercutting Katy Perry's Witness release.
It's a bit iconic, like
so
bit cheap, but iconic. So do you think it was just, or was she just being kind of really old school at heart? Because I suppose that's how she'd done all the others with she did it for Reputation as well, but just didn't do any promotion for it.
She just failed to, which happens. It was just a mistake, and I mean, maybe she didn't see it as a mistake. It just happened. She always says that every time she releases an album, she changes it. She changes the way she does it. That's why she's on TikTok right now. She's on TikTok for no other reason, but when she releases an album, that she has it. So I think that it was just a fumble. It was just a not keeping up right with the times. Because even like there's 18 songs on Lover. That's a big.
It's long.
List. Yeah,
it's long.
It's hard to get through. Because there's a song called Afterglow, and that's one of my favorite songs she's ever released. It's actually just perfect. And that is actually Post Malone's producer. She tried it out with him for 1 or 2 songs.
I get that influence now that you say it. Right. It's very Beer Bronx and Bentleys.
I feel like people don't know that. I haven't really seen...
I didn't know that.
I haven't seen much Swiftie talk. There was another one. I think it might be Daylight, but I'm not really sure, on that album. And she never worked with them again. And I think it's because after Lover, she totally changed it up.
Yeah.
But I kind of wish she went back to that because Afterglow is such a good song. The production on it's amazing.
I love Afterglow. The Archer is obviously the iconic track 5 and was released kind of as like a promotional single. Do you love?
One of my favorites of all time. I find it hard to listen to.
Yeah, it is. It's very sad. It's very, very sad. For as happy as this album is, there are like shades of like grey.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's funny enough, like Swifties kind of see this as one of her saddest albums with a pop mix and squished around loads of other sad songs.
Yeah.
So happy songs. And that's what's hard. Because like then you have like Cornelia, I know we'll go through it, like Cornelia Street. People see that as her
Street. Oh my
saddest
God.
song.
And that live version. Oh my God.
She literally says, like, if you break up with me, I will never, ever be able to look at that street we used to walk down again. My entire life will be over.
I will never be able to be a pedestrian. How dare you? I love her. She's insane. I love that song. Miss Americana and the Heartbreak Prince we have as well.
I kind of like, I put it on when I'm walking and Miss Americana.
You me? Yeah.
I like the production. It's not giving much, but it's a good song. You know?
I think it was kind of like it's her experimenting with like going from the different perspectives, which she obviously hadn't done a huge amount of before, or you'd be led to believe in terms of what she released. And then you see it more on the likes of Folklore and Evermore. Paper Rings, I love. Bit of a bop.
You know, that's where that's where I think Me should have been around. Like, Paper Rings, imagine Paper Rings is the first single. What a disaster. Yeah. But as number 8, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But not as a lead single.
Yeah.
You know?
So fair. We mentioned Cornelia Street, Death by a Thousand Cuts, another iconic bridge.
An iconic bridge. Don't like the production at all.
Interesting.
On a personal level, but that is a Swiftie favourite.
Okay, yeah.
I just don't like it's very like chaotic and the production's all over the place. But as a Swiftie, a Swiftie song, it's one of the favourites.
Yeah, that had another resurgence on TikTok as well.
Yes.
London Boy.
I think we should skip that. I'm not willing to get into that.
Oh, I can't believe she's a Brit apologist.
I can't get into it.
I can't even think. Let's not. Just okay. Whatever, you're in love, I get it. You're getting that good Brit dick, but like we don't need to hear about it, you know? We just truly not. Soon You'll Get Better. But like you've this absolute like breakneck gear change then with Soon You'll Get Better. The song about her sick mom, a collaboration with the Chicks.
Right.
Just again, devastating.
I can't listen to the song. I've listened to it twice.
Neither can I. I can't.
I listened to it twice. I'll never. I don't think I'll ever listen to it again. It's just too sad, and I think that if people think that's dramatic, just listen to it once.
Yeah.
And you'll be sorry you thought it was dramatic.
Yeah.
I did like an album. I did like a Lover reaction on my Instagram back when I was first dabbling and stuff. And when it came to that, I was like, I'm skipping this. I was like, I'm not. I just put up a screenshot, like, go listen to it, but I'm not even touching it. Like,
I'm done. False God, that's her horny song.
False God.
One of her horny songs, but it's the horny song on those.
Yeah, she actually
love the horns. Horny literally and horny as in the instrument.
She sung this on Saturday Night Live.
Yes.
But I thought like Saturday Night Live is supposed to be fun, it's supposed to be quick. That's 3 minutes of just standing there singing. I thought she could have sung a different song on Saturday Night Live, but it's definitely one of the fan favourites again.
You Need to Calm Down, we obviously spoke about. Afterglow. Would you say it's your favourite on Lover?
Behind Cruel Summer.
Okay.
Afterglow, but in a different ways, it's my favourite. Like I listen to that song and I just love it. It's like going to heaven. That's how I can imagine going to heaven is.
We talked about Me. It's Nice to Have a Friend. I love It's Nice to Have a Friend, and I feel like other people don't. And also people interpret this as kind of like a bit of a boy anthem, kind of. Right.
People consider a lot of these songs.
I know. Let's not.
That's a whole other podcast. So I think this is one of the songs where the production carries you. Like you just listen to it and you sit down for 2 minutes 31 seconds and it carries you.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. It's great lyrics and stuff. Yeah, I love it. It's so good.
And then we had Daylight, as we've already mentioned as well. A long album. Would you cut anything? Probably sacrilegious to say, but well, actually, absolutely not. London Boy immediately in the fucking bin for me. Me in the bin. And then I think everything else is like relatively inoffensive to me. I think I could easily repackage this as like my ultimate Lover album.
Right.
And I would maybe drop a few more then.
Right.
But just for her, I feel like it boggles the mind that London Boy
is in there
and Me. Like I'll just never get it.
And if you could too, it would be a 16 track, which is a good 13 tracks and 3 bonus tracks. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that maths?
Yeah.
And it's giving maths. And 16 would have been fine. 18 is just too much.
Yeah.
Like if you look at albums, it's just too much.
So she releases Lover, gets all the sales, all the numbers, whatever. Swifties are like still eating it up, despite maybe being a little bit unsure.
Eating it up.
She's planning on going on this tour or whatever, and obviously she didn't. Well, she did tour Reputation. What was I going to say? But she had planned this festival and these specific festival shows for the album, which is something she had never done before.
Right.
Did not come to fruition because of the pandemic. Talk to me about Loverfest and how you feel this impacted the era overall.
You see, I think the one thing about Lover is, and I think why it's also seen as a flop, is because normally when Taylor does release, then she goes on a world tour with that album. 1989 tour, Speak Now tour, Fearless tour, that's what they're called. Reputation tour. So I think that's one thing Lover was missing. It kind of would have sunk into people's hearts more if they had a tour. And funny enough, it was actually called Taylor Swift and Friends. So the idea was that Taylor Swift and all of her friends, like all her friends, I guess, would open. So there could be it would be a whole day. It could be 8 hours of Shawn Mendes, Camila Cabello.
Was it ever confirmed who was going to play?
Never.
And what are the theories on who it was going to be?
The theories were
so Shawn makes sense, obviously, because he had collabed with her.
Right. I think one of the theories is that it was going to be different every time.
Okay.
You know, remember the 1999 tour, she would just bring people out. So one of the theories that it was going to be different every time. And it's kind of hard to know. There was never any speculation. There was never any hints dropped because it just never got to that point. So it's hard to know, but it would have been Taylor Swift and Friends. If you could picture who she's friends with, they would have shown up. Do you know?
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
Yeah.
The Camila Cabello, Shawn Mendes that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Low Words would be there somewhere.
Will she ever do something like it again, do you reckon, with what we know now and what we've heard of her? Well, actually, that kind of leads me into the next thing. So obviously she releases Lover, pandemic happens. Loverfest is obviously cancelled, and whatever other promo, she was planning on doing shows, everything, blah, blah, blah. Everyone kind of goes to ground, especially her, because that's just what she does.
Yeah.
She surprise releases Folklore, which is, again, a complete other different genre shift. She's working with Aaron Dessner from The National, Bon Iver. It's very folky, as the name suggests, and indie rock. It's her indie rock moment. That carries on into the next surprise album, which is Evermore.
Right.
And then she begins with the re-releases of her past records, which came about as a result of her scrap with Scooter Braun. This was just coming to a head prior to the release of Lover. Can you give people who might not be familiar a bit of background on that?
So in June of 2019, Taylor releases a statement on Tumblr. And this statement is lengthy. It's a very, very long story. But basically, Taylor reveals that Scooter Braun has bought her entire discography up to Reputation.
Yeah,
so
Scooter Braun is, he was Justin Bieber's manager, Ariana Grande, Demi Lovato.
Little known fact, he was Kanye West's manager in 2016. And that is why that is the main reason why she does not like.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
He was Kanye West's manager. In Taylor's mind, he orchestrated the entirety of 2016.
Yeah.
He planned it all out. He knew exactly what he was doing. Because in Taylor's mind, she was set up.
Yeah.
And I agree that she was set up. I think that they recorded her. I think that it was the whole setup. I think that's a whole other podcast.
A whole other podcast. And if you're unfamiliar, go listen to something else, or wait till Jonathan comes back and we talk about Reputation. But yeah, so he was the mastermind behind all of that. Well, that's what she reckons.
Right.
So she releases this statement about this happening, and she's obviously having a banger because she doesn't want that to happen. Right. Obviously.
And so she says, she calls it her worst case scenario. She also, so in the post, she also says, she puts up a screenshot of Justin Bieber's Instagram. And in this Instagram, Justin Bieber posts, Justin Bieber is the big person in the picture, right? And in the small little picture, on FaceTime, the small and big picture, it's Kanye and Scooter. And Justin captions it, Taylor Swift, what's up? Now, this, of course, is very mean, in my opinion.
Yeah.
This the whole thing went down. So then, anyways, if you skip forward, and see, then at this time, Justin comes out and he says, Scooter had nothing to do with that. That was all me. I posted that. I took the screenshot. However, if Justin Bieber took the screenshot on FaceTime, why is he the bigger person in the picture?
There you go.
And that is... So anyways, so basically Scooter screenshotted it and sent it to Justin. Why did he do that? I don't know.
Yeah.
The idea is that he did it to post it on Instagram and get under Taylor Swift's skin. So... After that, Oh yeah, so then Taylor releases another statement a few months. So basically, a lot goes on there. Again, you could go into it. In November, Taylor releases another statement talking about how she wants to perform at the AMAs, and
Lover has come out now at this point.
Right.
The AMAs are coming up, and she wants to perform, but basically, she wants to perform a kind of a medley or like older songs or whatever. Because this Lover was her first record with her new record label as well.
Right.
She wanted to perform other songs. Scooter was like, absolutely fucking not.
Right. Scooter, according to Taylor. According
to
Taylor, Scooter basically says that I'm not letting you sing any of your other songs because technically that's a re-recording. Her to go on AMAs, she's re-recording it because now the AMAs own that recording. So Scooter says that you can't sing any of the songs I own because at this point Scooter owns all the songs. He claims that she can't sing any of the songs without his permission, and she's not going to let him unless she agrees to stop talking bad about him. And she also can't use any of her songs on her new Netflix documentary, which that's how she announced her Netflix documentary. In this statement about Scooter Braun, she was like, this is not how I want you to hear about this, but Scooter Braun is not letting me use my music in Netflix either. So basically she's kind of saying, guys, help me out here.
Yeah. As she can do with the fandom.
As she can do. And let me tell you, when Taylor Swift says that, the Swifties listen, you know? So, anyways, I'm guessing, I think what happened is Scooter was banking on Taylor to act like she did in 2016. She said nothing, she stepped back and she took it. But this time, every time Scooter did something, Taylor put it straight online. She was like, look, this is what's happening, guys. I'm going to keep you updated. So he couldn't manipulate her like he wanted to. I think that this was a very vindictive move. From what I understand, he's wanted to work with Taylor for a long time. Taylor wouldn't. Taylor disagreed a lot. So he forced the deal by buying her masters without her permission. That's what I think happened. My own personal opinion. You might be a Justin Bieber stan and disagree, but that's...
I mean, I think it's clear as day. Like, Scooter Braun has and will never come out of this situation well. But it doesn't matter anyway because she's gone and re-recorded everything and has basically absolutely devalued even her original recording. Yeah. So...
And
fuck you, Scooter Braun.
It kind of turned out to be like, this could have cost her, re-recording could have cost her a lot of money. It could have been a disaster, you know, as in like often people don't care, but she has turned it into like one of the most successful ideas in like music history. Like I think this will go down as like one of the most successful things someone's ever done because she's releasing old albums and she's selling millions of copies. Like that's kind of crazy.
She's changed the game. Like whatever you want to say about her, what other artist could do that? No one.
And like it's the first time a re-recorded album has ever gone number one, and she's done it Fearless, Red. She's done it twice now.
And she's going to do it fucking 1989 when she does it, which I'm so excited about. Jonathan, I want to end on this line from Mary Soroki, I should say, in her 2021 ranking of Swift's discography for Consequence. She deemed Lover Taylor's weakest album, and she said, it feels a bit too much like an unnecessary course correction from Reputation, rather than a collection of themes Swift was really interested in pursuing. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree that it was a bad choice of a genre idea. I think Taylor agrees because after Lover, she literally switched genre again. I don't think she could have released another pop album after Lover. I think moving on to kind of folk sound really worked out well for her. However, I think that despite a messy release rollout and despite the album being a bit too long, I think it is a really good album. It's a really strong album. If you were to like really get a chance, you'd like it. But I do agree that she didn't know what she was doing when she did it. And I think that's the first time. It was her first misstep of an album release. She's made a lot of missteps, but her albums always did. She always made the right decisions, it seemed. But this was definitely her first misstep.
Interesting. Are you excited for the rest of the re-releases? What re-release are you most excited for?
Oh, that's a great question. Probably Reputation, actually. Well, probably
Same.
Reputation. Definitely Reputation. I think I don't think she can do that yet. I don't think she can do that till the end of the year. So that would probably be last. Because I'm guessing she's already re-recorded the others.
Yeah.
So probably Reputation, then 1989. And then kind of I'm interested to see what she do with Picture to Burn. Is she gonna? I mean, I want the gay cut. I want the homophobics. The homophobic cut. I want that in there. I also, if it's not there, it's gonna be disappointing.
Yeah.
And also, like, it's gonna be really interesting. I think they're all gonna be
so interesting.
Yeah.
So interesting, Jonathan. It's been so interesting to talk to you. Where can people find out more about you? You're a big wig on TikTok. Let's talk about that. If any Marvel heads listening, you need to be following Jonathan on TikTok. How did that all come about for you?
So I started doing TikTok just about a year ago now. About a year and a month now.
That's crazy. It's such a short period of time.
Right. Like I actually started out with doing like Taylor Swift. Yeah, it is. Like the amount that's happened in the last year is mad. Like I don't know how it all came about, but basically, long story short, I started doing TikToks out of boredom. I kind of started doing some Taylor Swift ones, and then it kind of didn't go anywhere. So then one day I started doing some Marvel ones, and then one of them just got 1.5 million views out of nowhere. This is kind of how TikTok happens. And then I just kept going. I followed every road. I kept going. And now I'm here. I don't know how. Now I'm on the show with
I love it.
Some 6 o'clock shows.
I love even though I only watch a handful of the Marvel movies, I love to watch so that I know what's going on because you break it down so well.
When I seen you follow me, I was like, I seen you follow me. I was like, I know her. And then I kind of followed through the Instagram. I was like, oh my God, that's the girl from the Batman podcast. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to follow her back and I'm going to wait like 2 weeks.
I'm going to follow her and ask her why she publicly harassed me on a podcast.
So yeah, I was so happy to see that follow. I was like, oh my God. So yeah, things are going fun. So yeah, you can find me on TikTok, Jay's Takes, Instagram, Jay's Takes Entertainment. Yeah, I talk about like pop culture. I talk about movies. I talk about Marvel. All sorts. There's I have playlists you can kind of go see. Yeah.
If you like this podcast, you will love following Jonathan on social media, so go do it. Jonathan, an absolute pleasure. We will definitely have you back for something else, but it was a pleasure to talk to you about Lover today, so thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. This was so much fun. I'll come back anytime. And also thank you for showing my granny that I've met it. So I will be showing her this podcast. She's going to be so excited.
Shout out to Jonathan's granny. Woo!
Love it. Love it.
And you can find all of Jonathan's links in the show notes. But otherwise, he is at Jay's Takes on TikTok and at Jay's Takes Entertainment on Instagram. I cannot wait to have him on again in the future. I want to talk about a couple of things before I move on from Taylor. Midnight's obviously out tomorrow. That's very exciting. I'm looking forward to that a lot. Kind of want to walk back something I said in that interview with Jonathan, and not even necessarily walk back, but like clarify when we're talking about, you know, Taylor and doing You Need to Calm Down and kind of being taken very literally when it comes to politics and stuff in the music. I said, sometimes I don't want pop stars to be like that. And when I say that, I mean more so with the music and especially with pop music, because I don't always think that's done well. And I think this is like a particularly good example of that. I think this is like predominantly a pop song with a message kind of baked in, but I don't think it's the message doesn't overload and overtake, if that makes sense. My difficulty with her, I suppose, comes with everything else, and I was being a bit forgiving about her in that conversation with Jonathan when we were talking about the documentary where she's like really struggling about coming out, in inverted commas. I hate using that expression to talk about this, but coming out, you know, as a Democrat or like as political. I don't think pop stars should be apolitical. I think they should, especially when they have the influence that they have in the modern day with social media, with the way fandoms are now. And I think that especially goes for someone like Taylor Swift, who we've seen use her influence for some good and, to be honest, predominantly more bad sometimes. There was the whole issue with the Ginny and Georgia show that made like a bad joke about her, about, you know, having loads of boyfriends, whatever, that really old, tired drum that we beat and we shouldn't beat anymore. She sent the fandom, by coming out and criticising that, after the show's creators, not the show's creators, but more so the show stars, they were getting intense criticism over that joke when it had nothing to do with them. They didn't write it. You know, we've seen her come out against other things, and I'm not saying she wasn't right in coming out against it, but she's very capable of setting the dogs on people and very reluctant to call them back. And we've seen that in other examples with even like, I suppose a different example is she's very pick and choose when it comes to being vocal. Like, she'll come out and give out because Damon Albarn accuses her of not writing her own songs, which he wasn't right to do. Two things can be true at once. Let's go back to our favourite saying. He was not right to do that. The issue then is, though, she comes out and she's well able to tweet about that. But you have something, we'll say the likes of, you know, Roe v. Wade, which was abolished earlier this year and affects women's reproductive rights. She did say something about it, but she kind of didn't really, it was a bit tepid, you know what I mean? Haven't really heard anything else since. Would love to see more. And this isn't just a criticism of her, but it is a criticism of her not kind of putting her money where her mouth is and being more vocal when she has the power that she has and knowing the power that she has. She's not an idiot, you know what I mean? And then the other issue I found with her, particularly with this Midnight's album cycle that has been talked about a lot on TikTok, is how just aggressively capitalistic she looks with now this is a difficult argument because obviously musicians are in it for the love. They also need to make money, right? And they should be allowed to make money and they should make money off their art. And she's always had these very specific album campaigns and rollouts when it comes to things like merch and everything else. And she's always had very pretty unique, interesting merch or whatever. And this also feeds into a wider conversation around vinyl and how vinyls now have become like collectibles and how people have recognised that and they recognise that it's a way to make more money, yada, yada, yada. So the main concerns that I've seen from the fandom on TikTok and critiques is that there's like 4 separate variants of the Midnight's album coming, and then when you put them together they form a clock, so it's like a Midnight's clock collector's edition, whatever, blah blah blah. But to do that then you obviously have to buy like 4 different variations of the album, which the fans have rightly called out as to be like, this is just you trying to find a way to make more money. But again, it's not just her. Red Hot Chili Peppers most recent album, I'm pretty sure, has something like 30 colour variants, which is absolutely insane and puts huge pressure on the vinyl industry and is not fair. But anyway, there's been that conversation. I feel like she is someone who, having come from money, she's very Ed Sheeran in the way that she approaches the music industry and her craft like a business. And that's not to say that she shouldn't, but money is the priority for her, I think, and always will be. I think we maybe need to, and this goes for everything, just not put as much, faith is the wrong word, but just, I suppose, putting them on such high pedestals when at the end of the day, these are millionaires looking to maintain millions. And that goes back to the whole conversation of why she doesn't speak out. She doesn't speak out because she knows it would probably affect her public image and how much money she could possibly make. So it's just one thing I wanted to say. And then the other thing I really want to touch on quickly, which Jonathan kind of touched on when we were talking about Lover and this album and the lore around Gaylor, about her potentially being queer, conversations around her queer baiting. I'm not going to get into the whole back history of whether she is or she isn't, or fan theories. There are loads of podcasts that talk about that. I actually think we talk about it on Bandwagons if you want to go back and listen to that episode. But with this new album, Midnight's, there's a song on it and it's called Lavender Haze. And she's done these videos explaining basically how the meaning behind a lot of the songs, right? So she said that when she was researching for this album, she came across this phrase, lavender haze, when she was watching Mad Men. I looked it up because I thought it sounded cool, and it turns out that it's a common phrase used in the 50s where they would describe being in love. If you were in the lavender haze, that meant you were in that all-encompassing love glow, and I thought that was really beautiful. I guess theoretically, when you're in the lavender haze, you do anything to stay there and not let people bring you down off that cloud. I think a lot of people have to deal with this now, not just public figures, because we live in the era of social media. If the world finds out that you're in love with somebody, they're going to weigh in on it. And she's kind of referenced that this is obviously about her relationship with Joe Alwyn, the actor. And she said, we've had to dodge weird rumours, tabloid stuff, and we just ignore it. This song is sort of about the act of ignoring that stuff to protect the real stuff. And then off the back of that, the Gaylor stans went absolutely bananas and kind of took it as a real slight at them for peddling these theories around her potentially being queer, and took real umbrage. You will only know about this if you're on TikTok and if you're on Swift Talk, which can be a very dark place. Some like 75% of the time it's grand, and then you get this 25% where it's unhinged. But anyway, they were really, really upset over the fact that, basically that, again, she wasn't coming out, first of all, and that she was kind of having this dig at the fandom, and they were kind of taking umbrage with the fact, we're so supportive of you, and you've been kind of dropping all these hints and clues, and you're queer baiting us, and none of it's real, and you're still with this man, yada, yada, yada. It's just, it boggles the mind. This is one of those things where I'm like, leave her alone. You know what I mean? She doesn't owe anyone anything in terms of relationship explanation or whatever. She doesn't have to come out for you. If you want to interpret songs in a certain way that's more applicable for you and your lifestyle and who you love, whatever, that's completely grand. But until she wants to come out or whatever, that's up to her. And I know there's an argument there that, again, maybe she is queer, but she hasn't come out as queer for the exact same reason why she hasn't come out and been more political in terms of certain societal issues. I think that's a fair argument, but also I just think we're on a slippery slope there in terms of outing people or wanting to out people. It's weird. Let's just pull back. We're all getting a bit too internet brained, I think, and we all could do with going outside and touching some grass, okay? That's all I will say on that. I'm really excited for Midnights. Myself and Jonathan will be going live on TikTok at some point once we've let the album digest a bit more. So keep an eye out on social media for that at flapculture_pod, and we'll let you know when we're going to do that. And it's the same handle on TikTok, so that's handy, isn't it? Oh, deep exhale. I think it's time for Top of the Flops.
You're a flop.
Top of the Flops this week. We've got another double whammy for you, right? So first up, unsurprisingly, we've got James Corden. But then we also have Keith McNally of Balthazar's, this restaurant in the States. So if you're totally unfamiliar, earlier this week, Keith McNally, who's a restaurateur, posted on his Instagram that basically James Corden was really, really bad to his staff in Balthazar's. He called him a hugely gifted comedian, questionable, but a tiny cretin of a man. This was all just on Instagram as well, I should say. He was basically called him the most abusive customer to my Balthazar servers since the restaurant opened 25 years ago. And he had two examples of James Corden basically being a flop, right? So there was one time he ate in the restaurant in June. He finished his starter and there'd been a hair in it, right? And he showed it to manager G, so says Keith McNally. And he goes on to say, Corden was extremely nasty to G and said, get us another round of drinks this second. And also, take care of all of our drinks so far. This way, I won't write any nasty reviews in Yelp or anything like that. Okay, then there's another one in October, assuming of this year, not sure, or maybe last year, who knows. Anyway, October. Corden and his wife were eating in Balthazar's for brunch. She ordered something called an egg yolk omelette. He asked for a table outside, whatever. They were brought outside. She ordered the egg yolk omelette with Gruyere cheese and salad. A few minutes after they received the food, James called their server, MK, and told her there was a little bit of egg white mixed with the egg yolk. MK informed the floor manager, who was G. G went back. It was remade in the kitchen, but when they sent it out again, it had fries instead of salad. I'm quoting Keith again here. That's when James Corden began yelling like crazy to the server, you can't do your job. You can't do your job. Maybe I should go into the kitchen and cook the omelette myself. MK was very apologetic and brought G over to the table. He returned the dish, and after that, everything was fine. He gave them free champagne glasses to smooth things out. G said that Corden was pleasant to him, but nasty to the server, MK, who was very shaken but professional. But the professional that she is continued to finish her shift. This goes on Instagram. This goes everywhere because, one, nobody really likes James Corden from a pop culture perspective, but he also has this reputation, if you're anyway following pop culture, which I'll get into in a second. This on Instagram goes everywhere, blah, blah, blah. A couple hours later, Keith McNally posts again, being like, actually, do you know what? It's grand, because he just called, he apologised profusely, and he said, having fucked up myself more than most people, I strongly believe in second chances, so if James Corden lets me host his Late Late Show for 9 months, I'll immediately rescind his ban from Balthazar. No, of course not. And then was just like, blah, 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 it's grand. Come back to the 5 and dime, Jimmy Corden, all is forgiven, XXX. I mean, just like stick to your guns, Keith McNally. You know what I mean? And then I'm also like, this is the easiest way to get promo for a restaurant ever, because you have a celebrity that is kind of widely disliked, like Corden. You send it on Instagram, it's going to go everywhere. Keith McNally is a dab hand at Instagram. I feel like this is not his first foray into this kind of thing, but I don't think it's blown up in the way that this did. But as I said, if you're familiar with James Corden, even beyond like not liking him in terms of his persona and the roles he's taken, he has a reputation for allegedly being a bit difficult, shall we say. And this Balthazar admission made me think of, he's still trending today as I opened Twitter. This made me think of a Pop Bitch story that may or may not be true. Pop Bitch newsletter is very good. Go subscribe if you're not already. That I'm going to read out to you now. And the title is A Flying Fuck, Tales from the Cockpit. Half an hour into a New York to London flight, passengers in business class noticed a woman with a crying baby being brought through the curtains by a flight attendant. They looked on in mild horror as they saw the attendant direct her into an empty seat next to ... James Corden. Expecting a huge celebrity hissy fit to kick off, Corden's cabin mates were impressed to see that he didn't say a word or make any sort of complaint. He simply put on a pair of noise-cancelling headphones, pulled an eye mask over his eyes and turned away from her to sleep. Pretty decent of him, right? When the plane landed though, passengers were surprised to see Corden remained seated as the woman with the baby struggled to open the overhead locker. And even more surprised when she turned to Corden and said, "For fuck's sake, can you at least hold the baby while I get the bags down?" The woman was his wife, the baby was his baby. Top of the flops, James Corden. Get a life. Get a life.
Get a life! Get a life!
Thank you so much for listening. We are on Instagram and TikTok, as I already mentioned, under @flapculture_pod. You can get in touch at helloflapculture@gmail.com. If you leave a 5-star review in your name or nickname on Apple Podcasts, I will recommend a bop or flop to you. And you can also leave a 5-star review on Spotify. This podcast has been edited by Adam Shannon, as always, and the wonderful artwork is by Brian Lambert. I will see you all next week. Goodbye.